Uh, Hello. I have the honor to host Jordan Bates here, uh, co-creator of High Existence, CEO at Refine the Mind, and just a conscious entrepreneur. Hello.
Hello, Marco. Thanks for having me.
How are you doing? Where are you located at the moment?
I'm presently in Iowa in the United States, visiting family where I'm originally from, and I'm doing well. Yeah, having a good time overall.
Great. Yeah. So basically, I wanted to talk to you about just maybe why is it not important, but what would you say, why living everyday regular life might be important or worthwhile, taking the path to some changes in your life. So maybe we can start, who was Jordan Bates at college, and what was maybe a trigger for you to change from a regular, let's say, student, and well, what was your beginning? What would you say? I mean, obviously the beginning is from when you were born, but let's say something that when things actually started rolling, and when you actually got some empowerment from being independent or something like that.
Yeah, so first I'll say that I don't think breaking away from the normal path is for everyone, or taking quite an unorthodox track in life like I've taken. It wouldn't be the path for everyone. A lot of people never feel called in that direction, and they live a life that's more aligned with what their culture has traditionally done. And I have a really deep sense that everyone is really in their proper place, doing doing what they need to be doing. So just to get that out of the way. But I do think that we're at a time now when more and more people are starting to feel an increasing call to break out of the norm and break away from the dominant paradigm. I think there's an emerging realization that the dominant cultural paradigm on earth right now is no longer really sustainable. It's not really harmonized with the ecological laws on the planet, and therefore business as usual is sort of driving humanity off a cliff. And so I think it's no coincidence that in a time like this, where this is these realizations are beginning to saturate the collective mind, more and more people are feeling a dissatisfaction with the status quo way of living, and starting to feel a sense of wanting to diverge and find some kind of more purposeful path that is maybe more in alignment with discovering some kind of new paradigm for humanity that could be more aligned with the ecological laws on the planet, let's say. So you asked about my story. So for me, yeah, I grew up in small town Iowa, and spent the first 18 years of my life here. Was very much immersed in kind of the classic American dream. Was told, was in talented and gifted programs, and told I was talented and gifted from a young age. So started to have kind of dreams of high achievement of some kind from a young age, and felt like, oh, I want to do some kind of great thing or something like this. But also had a very kind of like um, self-centered vision of just wanting to get a mansion and have nice cars, and like wanted to achieve things for the status kind of, and yeah, I mean, again, that's just a stage of development. There's nothing inherently wrong with that, but I was thinking of everything I was doing, like high school and then college, as just kind of stepping stones leading toward, you know, this process of just kind of checking off the boxes of getting a good job, getting a well-paying job, having, nice house, car, starting a family, whatever. I was pretty much on the traditional track, you could say. And then I got to college and realized I started to just become disillusioned in different ways and started to really ask deeper questions. I had some very formative early experiences with psychedelics that really kind of dissolved a lot of, at least temporarily dissolved a lot of my cultural programming, and just allowed me to kind of step back out of myself and see life through new eyes. Early experiences with, magic mushrooms, I feel like were really crucial. Couple MDMA experiences also initiated a lot of epiphanies, but those experiences just kind of activated something. It was almost like a reactivation of a childhood curiosity that I had kind of lost in the education system, where a lot of the education systems on earth right now don't really teach you to be curious and ask questions and value your own insights. They teach you more so that the experts have already found the answers, and the answers are in the back of the textbook, and all you need to do is memorize the answers and spit them out at the proper time. And they don't so much encourage creativity and divergent thinking. So I had this kind of reactivation of childhood curiosity. For years, I'd been becoming disillusioned with the religion of my childhood. I was raised Catholic, and I just started to have some serious issues with organized religion. And I started to just really deeply question, what is the purpose of life? Why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? Why is any of this here? What is the meaning of all this? Asking these deep kind of existential questions. And I decided to study English literature and philosophy. And so I was being introduced to different authors who also became really influential. Was introduced to Emerson and Thoreau and Ginsberg, Kerouac, Nietzsche, William Blake, William Wordsworth, guys like this, who really kind of took the road less traveled and questioned everything. And this kind of led me to then study abroad for a month. I studied abroad in Spain for 1 month, and that really blew things wide open on a new level. I just really stepping outside my cultural matrix and seeing how much of my culture I had taken as just the way life is, but actually it's just the way my culture is. And so I just started to develop this real love for just really, as I realized more and more that so much of what I had been told and indoctrinated into growing up was not the absolute truth. In a lot of cases, it's just not true at all, or that there was just a lot more going on than I then was really contained in the maps that were given to me. I just developed this real love for exploring life on my own and trying to find my own answers and my own insights and my own path and journey. And so, those college years were really formative, and that led directly to me just realizing I couldn't just slot into some kind of job that I wasn't passionate about or I didn't care about. So I decided to teach English in Asia right after college, and went to Asia for 16 months. And that, of course, just like was another milestone. 16 months over there further just changed everything, really expanded my sense of possibility. And after that, it was like, there was really no going back to the normal paradigm. And I had, in college as well, started learning about online entrepreneurship, and realized people were earning a living like blogging and creating things on the internet and creating things that they were passionate about. So I had started Refine the Mind in 2012 while in college, and I just kept blogging while I was traveling and living in Asia. And that gradually led to me guest posting on High Existence a couple times, and then eventually joining the High Existence team, and collaboratively creating and building High Existence for about 5 years, and becoming a co-owner and eventually the CEO of High Existence, and then eventually stepping away from that to focus now 100% on Refine the Mind and on my music and just projects that I've completely birthed into the world. So that's the kind of general synopsis.
Yeah. And so basically for you in the first years it was a solo run, a lot of motivation, intrinsic motivation, and then later on it only came high existence. So in my discussing with people or topics like this, it always ends up being culture, the thing that is forming us, and it's so unseen, like for many. At least it was like this for me, like just and also I like what I like about you is you always say this is not the path for everyone. It's not like, yeah, you have to do it. No, you don't have to do it. So maybe just a one step that everybody could do is travel a bit and see how culture is molding us, and how culture maybe is not, well, perfect at least, and also not aligned with some natural laws, and that maybe some guidelines are wrong. So maybe capital leading too much of the story and stuff like that. So yeah, how important was for you, like to be in a group of people, like let's say open-minded, like-minded people, to encourage you not to, well, give up on your path, and yeah, how important was that? And did you feel like well, I think in the beginning, when you're just traveling and exploring, it's all fun. But then in a point where you start maybe creating or making an impact, I think there's a time when you start doubting. For me, I think so. In that point, what times did some people, let's say, help you, like to not give up or something like that? Did you have moments like that? Or help you to gave you wind in your back?
Yeah, definitely. It's been extremely vital part of my path to find the others, like this was another thing in college. I started meeting people who were just different from anyone I'd ever met, people who were actually asking questions and were more philosophical and were more actively being students of life and students of nature, and just seeing that modeled was really important for me. And then I naturally started to seek out more people like this, and I feel like the internet is the ultimate tool for finding the others. Just makes it so much easier than in previous times to find the people who are really on a similar wavelength. And I often say that one of the fastest ways to, if you do feel some kind of call to dramatically shift your reality, if you're not satisfied with the reality you're living in, one of the fastest ways to shift it is to find the others as soon as you can and start spending significant amounts of time in the energy field of people who are living in the type of reality that you want to live in. Because the heuristic that says you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with is relatively accurate in my experience. We're all just like pulled into the realities of those with whom we spend the most time. And so, yeah, it's, I've been fortunate for many years to, it's kind of started, I've been fortunate my whole life really to have, good friends and family who I could talk to at whatever stage I'm at about what I'm going through, and talk through, my doubts and anxieties and fears, and talk through my issues. And yeah, it seems like every stage, as I've opened up to new dimensions of life and new dimensions of myself, life has a way of bringing you the people that you then need to meet at that stage, who you can talk through the complexities and the issues of that stage that maybe other people in your life wouldn't quite understand, because they haven't done they don't have the context because they haven't traveled the world or taken psychedelics, or they haven't tried to become an entrepreneur, or been involved in a lot of online communities or whatever it is. I think life really has a beautiful way of it's like the principle is like goes to like, and birds of a feather flock together. It's amazing how as you expand and as you blossom, if you just keep putting yourself out there and actually expressing whatever your current truth is, you will magnetize and find people who are resonating on a similar frequency. And then those people will be super vital for talking through whatever you're going through, and also providing. It's been extremely vital on my path to have people around me, good friends who can really provide radically honest feedback, who are not sugarcoating things and are just yes men that are purely only encouraging me and just giving me this kind of artificial niceness and this pure validation. Because the human ego is super crafty, and especially when you get on these alternative paths in life, it's very easy for the ego to kind of latch on and feel like, oh, I've found the answer, I've woken up from the matrix, I'm so far ahead of the game. And pride cometh before a fall, like as it says in the Bible. If the ego starts to get inflated by whatever is happening, life is eventually gonna roundhouse kick you in the face in some major way to take you down from whatever pedestal you've put yourself on. And so it's just been, and I certainly have a strong ego that likes to try to inflate itself. And this is an ongoing, absolutely an ongoing practice. And I'm so thankful for having radically honest friends who can really act as mirrors for me and point out my blind spots and my shadows, and say, hey, I'm feeling this in your energy, and something feels kind of off here or incongruent. And then I look at that and I'm like, oh, wow, yeah, I see that, I feel that. And I couldn't see that on my own. So we absolutely need each other. We need the feedback of radically honest, loving friends. Yeah.
Were you like that the whole time, receiving feedback? For me, I noticed that for years it has been a problem of not really hearing the feedback. I think it's a story of growth mentality, or just wanting to receive. Yeah, you're good, Marco, and that the part of receiving feedback sounds simple, but is actually quite painful. I think that it's something to related with embracing your shadow, or something on that path. If, I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I used to be much worse at receiving feedback, much more closed off to feedback, because the more inflated and stronger the ego has become, the more the ego has become inflated to compensate for some kind of underlying lack of self-worth, or some kind of underlying insecurity, or whatever your wounds are. We all get wounded by life, and we have fundamental wounds and traumas, and our egos build themselves up to compensate for this, and to kind of push all that stuff away, and just create an inflated notion of who we are, an inflated sense of self. And in general in the world, I would say that most people do not handle radically honest feedback well at all. They don't even want it. They don't ask for it. They don't look for it. If you try to give it to them, you immediately start to see their claws come out, or you see them just dismiss it. Their mind just quickly rationalizes it away and says, oh no, that's one of the things that I don't want to look at all. So I'm just gonna if you tell someone something and you notice that they immediately have a reactive response to it. They're like, oh no, that's not this way because X and Y. It's a strong sign that you're onto something and you're telling them something true, but you can see in real time the defenses their mind has created to just push away anything that challenges the inflated ego concept. And so I think it's so vital to have some of these experiences that like really pop that ego and like kind of shatter things, and that's usually what it takes to break it down for the first time, because you know the ego has been becoming inflated throughout life, and we're not taught to welcome radically honest feedback. We're not taught to give each other radically honest, loving feedback. And so usually people have major, you know, the reason people have such major crises and breakdowns in life is because they were not receiving radically honest feedback to calibrate in a continual, ongoing way. So then they reach a point where the fall has to be really big when life finally does undercut the pedestal. And so, yeah, for me, I feel like some psychedelic experiences and like heartbreak experiences and stuff like this were some early, like really humbling experiences. And then I was fortunate to start to meet individuals who were just living in a mode of giving radically honest feedback, like starting to meet conscious individuals who are actually actively embracing feedback and saying, look, feedback is the best thing ever. Feedback, it might sting, but literally it's how we can constantly actually calibrate and see ourselves more clearly so that we can actually act more skillfully and wisely and not set ourselves up for a huge fall or set ourselves up for a huge explosion at some time. So I've just gradually more and more over the years started really, really embracing that, to the point where, I mean, I frequently, or I don't know how frequently, but I fairly regularly will just ask people in my life, please tell me anything you can tell me about my blind spots and shadows. Is there anything you see about me that you don't think I see about myself? Because I just find that feedback so valuable. No matter how much it might sting, it just inevitably, it helps me see myself more clearly, and whatever I can integrate from that, it just allows me to act more skillfully and avoid worse situations later. So
Yeah, that's actually maybe an important part to say, that it's basically, it looks like you're like opening up, like being, well, I don't know, more vulnerable, how do you say it?
vulnerable.
Vulnerable, yeah, sorry. And but in the end, in the long run, you're doing better. You're actually doing something that is smart, and basically protecting yourself. So this is basically like also a story of well, mental health and like self-healing and stuff like that. For me, it was hard to even accept that that I need like healing. It's, I think it's a story that I think I heard it from Charles Eisenstein, that basically what we are experiencing now as a, well, species, I think, but maybe Western society, is that we are transiting from a story that is separation to a story of connectedness. And he says, and that I think it's more of a Christian story, a myth of life and death. And he says, like, this is a story about that I don't know even how to heal from. and I think that's the root of all our existence, like how people approach life. Like I think you even wrote it, that we have a civilization, like humanity, that has such a bad relationship with that. So I think it's something on that track, the opening to even to that idea that life is we are mortal. I think it's the other. If you don't do it, if you don't open up to this, I think it's just putting things under the blanket and having like a illusion of a life that everything is here to stay, and yeah, that I heard also about from Eric Godsi recently on a live from a group, that life is not to be like if life is a song, then it would be stupid to just play the last note, like to chase the goal. If life is a song, and it's just supposed to be like sang and danced and just I think this story that you are telling, that I think I'm pursuing as well, is a story of like giving more depth to life, like having more in the same period of time, having more juice out of life. Like I always feel like I'm just breathing more deeply, or yeah, I don't know. But what I usually find people judging, people that do take on that path, is judging like, oh, now you're not perfect. You're saying like you're on a spiritual path, whatever. But the first time you get something wrong, they judge you. So do you have? And I'm glad that now that I know that it's not a path to being perfect. It's just a path to being honest and more present, something like that. So do you have still, like, after letting go of all the stuff, what is the like the dark shadows that are still here, and then you have like consciously appear here and there? Do you have stuff like that, like when you're tired, when you're not fully present, and what is something that is appearing and that you have to still live with, if you have stuff like that?
You broke up for a second, so you asked what remaining shadows am I still working with and working on?
So yeah, well, after letting go of all the unneeded stuff, and in my opinion, I still have stuff that I carry with myself, but I haven't been ready to, let's say, remove. But here and there, they pop out. So what do you have stuff like that, and how do you deal with them?
Yeah, I think it's a great point that the spiritual path is not about being some like perfect enlightened angel like floating above everyone else. Actually, I feel true spirituality brings you deeper into your humanity and deeper into acknowledging your human rough edges and your foibles and your shortcomings, and it's really beautiful to see that and to realize that we can allow ourselves to be human. This is what we are. We're human. Reminds me of the Mac Miller lyric where he's like, I'm a human, let me make mistakes. And that's a beautiful realization that we don't have to be perfect. But as far as remaining shadows, I do feel like shadow work is literally an endless practice. Like no matter how much you've brought into the light, it seems like there's always more to discover, because we're such deep and complex beings. And the definition of a shadow is something that is currently invisible to you. It's like something you've repressed and rejected, or that you can't see currently in yourself. So by definition, it's impossible for me to say exactly what my remaining shadows and stuff are, but I can say that still regularly stuff happens where, it's these moments of like dissonance or being triggered, where this is how you do shadow work, as you watch for these moments where you're triggered, or where you feel some dissonance and you're like, wait, what is that? What am I not? That's like the breadcrumb or the clue that can lead you to making more of this stuff conscious, bringing it into consciousness so you can actually dissolve it and integrate it. But I mean, I can say just as recently as yesterday, I had a really humbling moment where I was having a really deep conversation with a friend, and we were talking about quite some personal subjects. So I won't get into the content exactly, but I can just say that going to this really personal, intimate territory, I suddenly noticed that I was like feeling some kind of hot energy in my body, and I started to become kind of irritated and frustrated. And I was like, wait, what's going on there? What is this? And then I started to realize that what we were talking about related to some very painful experiences that I had last year. And I realized that, oh wow, this is triggering like some trauma from those experiences last year. There's like this trauma is coming up in my body right now. And I wasn't aware that this trauma was still there, and that it related specifically to this particular area of life in this way. And so then I talked to my friend, I voiced that to my friend. I told her that was happening. And then I told her, I think actually it'd be best to say goodbye for now, because I really want to meditate and go into this and actually work with this now, because this is here. And so then I got off the phone and started lying down in the dark and meditating and just really feeling my body and feeling what was coming up. And then I started crying, and I started kind of shaking, and this is the process of releasing trauma. You know, it's a process of, and the process of healing is really a process of allowing ourselves to feel our feelings and allow ourselves to feel what we never fully felt. And I love your point about how for a lot of us in Western culture, especially men, this idea of healing sounds like, oh, I don't need healing. That sounds like some sissy shit or something. But truly, we all need healing, because life affects us all. Life is a painful gauntlet of challenges, and it leaves all of us with traumas and wounds, and we all need healing. So it's beautiful to embrace that and to realize that most fundamentally, healing yourself is really just about allowing yourself to feel all your feelings and realize that they're all okay. Just welcome them all and feel them all, welcome them into this space of love and this space of unconditional acceptance, and then just let yourself feel them. And so, yeah, I cried and I shook and I screamed into a pillow, and then I even drove to a nearby place so that I could like get entirely away from people and just like listen to some loud, intense music in the car. And then a couple of times just like really screamed and like almost shrieked, because I just felt like, oh, this energy needs to like escape somehow. Sometimes with really intense energies, it's like they need some form of release that's really visceral, like a scream. Or the essence of what I was saying was just that, yeah, big energies need some kind of learning to do that work ourselves consciously. We avoid releasing that stuff on the people we love, like in a moment when, you know, instead of a fight erupting and you release all your unconscious stuff on your spouse by yelling at them, you learn to actually feel that energy in your body and go do your own work somewhere, and not just take that out on the people.
So basically what I think that is going on here, and I have more of an experience with my wife, my unwedded wife, and my children, is that I have a deep sense of we are living in a culture that is not letting us experiment, not letting us make mistakes, and not like then accordingly not being able to apologize because you are not expecting to be understood, rather like to be judged for even making that kind of a mistake. So maybe at this point we can go from to a point where you said that it is important having skin in the game. So is it, and also why getting this spiritual stuff or healing stuff into a business, or just getting more involved, is important. That actually it is like you are participating in creating a different story than we are living at the moment. And I got to this point when you realize that you need to do work, everybody needs to do work, everybody is a part of a culture that is not feeding us with right information, and we are feeding back to the culture, and it's all a closed loop. then there is a moment when you have like this calling of having skin in the game, of, let's say, healing the planet, or just doing your part of rewriting the story of humanity or something like that. So maybe we can just touch upon that. What does it mean for you to have skin in the game, and why you think it's important, and yeah, why is it important, or for an individual and also for the collective, from your point of view?
Yeah, so skin in the game, in the way I've been talking about, there's a lot of different ways that you could think about having skin in the game. It's a notion of actually being really invested in what is happening. You know, having kids is one thing that comes up as like a way of really having skin in the game. I think when people have kids, they're suddenly much more connected to the state of the planet and the future of the planet, and they're like, oh, what kind of world is being created for my children? And a lot of people become more invested in, oh, we do need to take care of the planet and try to leave a better world to our children. So I don't have children at the moment, but that just is something that I think of to describe this notion of skin in the game. The way I've been speaking about this notion recently, I think you've heard me talk about it, is specifically regarding investing in transformational experiences. So I've simply noticed that there are a lot of people out there who are kind of dabblers in the world of self-healing, self-liberation, self-transformation, conscious entrepreneurship, and they're kind of just like, they try to grab all the free resources that they can on the internet and piece it all together themselves. And, maybe they read an article here and an article there. They download somebody's free ebook and like read a couple books. But I noticed that this path just becomes a lot more powerful when you actually take your own financial resources and you make some kind of significant investment in your own development, because it signals to your unconscious mind. When you do that, it signals to your unconscious mind that you're worthy of your own investment, that this whole pursuit of transformation and self-healing and self-liberation is actually truly worthwhile. It's worthwhile enough to take your own life force in the form of money and actually invest in it. So it signals your own worthiness to your unconscious mind, and it really causes you to go all in on your own process on a new level, because it's like, oh, I just invested a couple $1,000s to go on this retreat or something like that. I want that to be a worthwhile investment. So I'm really going to dive deep and go super deep in the structure of the retreat and the meditations and the plant medicine work or whatever it is. And I'm really going to, you become a lot more open and receptive to whatever is being taught within a given container. If you're getting something for free, you're just like, a lot of it, you might read it or listen to it, but you're just kind of deflecting a lot of it, and you're not you're not as open to it. Whereas if you put money down and you invest in this experience, you're going to be like, okay, I'm really going to try to open up and be curious and get something out of this. So you just, you become a lot more open to the teachings. And so in general, I think putting skin in the game by investing in transformational experiences is really a way to take one's kind of self-healing and self-liberation work to a new level. And specifically in the area of conscious entrepreneurship, is where I've found this to be super valuable. I noticed when I invested in high-level mentorship and mastermind experiences for myself as a conscious entrepreneur, that was a moment when my whole system was really like, oh, okay, this is really for real now. I just invested thousands of dollars in my own development as an entrepreneur. I'm going to make sure this was worth it by taking the actions that I need to take. And I just noticed myself go all in on a new level. And so, yeah, that's the gist of what are my current thoughts on skin in the game. Yeah.
So maybe to wrap it up, I have a friend that is always, when he's listening to someone, he always has a question that he asks to himself is, and maybe I wonder if you are able to answer it or not. What would you know how to say what is your end game in presenting yourself? Oh, yeah, what's your end game? How would you answer that question if someone like with wants to understand better?
I would say, as you said earlier, it's the old cliche. It's really not about the destination, it's about the journey. So my end game truly is, I feel like, this moment and this moment and this moment, and just coming deeper and deeper into this moment right now, and realizing more and more deeply that this moment right now is already always perfect and divine and whole, just as it is. And just melting deeply into that, and just really embracing all of life and appreciating every single moment of life as deeply as I can, and just coming and just really feeling and knowing who I am, and just being that person in the world, just being that person moment to moment. That's really what it's all about for me, is just appreciating life, and deeply savoring this moment, and seeing that it's all already here.
Yeah, I'm deeply grateful for your thoughts that are always, I like how you surround the story. It's not like just some empty stories. So I think it has been a really valuable talk, and I don't know if you have something you want to say before we finish or not.
One thing I'll say is just I do although I know that no general advice and no heuristic ever applies to anyone, it ever applies to everyone in life or every situation, I can really say that the event in my life when I really activated myself as a student of nature, and really began to value my own insights, and started to listen to my own truth, and really tried to find out what is my truth, and I became a student of nature. That was a really formative event in my life that has changed everything after that. And so for me, at least, I can really recommend the path of being a student of life and being a student of nature. And it also seems to me that the planet we're living on, the earth, this moment in history, is really inviting a lot of more of us to step into being a student of life, being a student of nature, and really activating ourselves and activating our curiosity. So I'll say that, and I'll also just add that if people want to find me on the internet, they can go to refinethemind.com and find me there, or else just Google my name, Jordan Bates, and you can find me on whatever social media platform you like. So
yeah, I will post the links as well in the description of the video, so I'm sure it will be this video helpful for many people. And again, I'm grateful for your time here, and yeah, just I'm excited of seeing how life unfolds further on, and just being the witness and living without. I heard once, like, just be with an open heart and without fear. It's something that I try to go with, and it's quite intimidating sometimes, but in the end I think it's worthwhile. So yeah, thank you.
Well
And
said,
I'll be
brother.